Today, we're diving into a building that tells an incredible story of faith, empire, and nationhood. It's the Cathedral Church of the Redemption in New Delhi. I mean, this is a place that saw the peak of British power and the very dawn of Indian independence. And that whole story, it's literally written in its stones. And really, that's the big question for us today. How does a building tell a nation's story? Because this cathedral, it's so much more than just a place of worship. It's like a quiet witness to all the huge, sweeping changes that shaped modern India. It's a story of colonial power, deep faith, and a really remarkable transformation. So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with its origins in a new imperial capital and its uniquely humble design. Then we'll look at its role as the voice of the British Raj, see how it transformed into a church for a new India, and finally explore the living legacy it carries on today. All right, so our story kicks off at the absolute height of the British Empire, way back in the early 20th century. It all starts with a massive decision that would completely redraw the map of India. So picture this, it's 1911, and the British decide to move their capital from Calcutta to a brand new purpose-built city, New Delhi. Now, this wasn't just like changing offices, this was a huge statement. And this new imperial capital needed new institutions to show off its power and serve its government. And, central to that whole vision was the need for a major Anglican cathedral. This thing wasn't just for Sunday service. It was designed to be the spiritual heart for the British elite, all the officials, civil servants, and military officers who were basically running the empire from this new city. Okay, so when you hear imperial cathedral, you're probably picturing some giant, towering monument to power, right? Well, what's so fascinating here is that its creators went in a completely different direction, one defined not by showing off, but by humility. Yeah, I mean, just look at the contrast on this slide. While those big European cathedrals are all about soaring spires and fancy decorations, the Cathedral of the Redemption just deliberately avoids all of that. Its whole design language is about modesty, clean lines, and a really profound simplicity. And this quote just nails the philosophy of its architect, Henry Med. This was the idea guiding the entire project. The building itself should encourage quiet, internal reflection instead of just overwhelming you with how big and grand it is. And you can see that idea baked right into its architectural DNA. Sure, it has a traditional cross-shaped layout, but that's kind of where the convention stops. The inside is all about space, light, and silence. And get this, the deliberate choice not to build a massive dome or a tall spire. For a cathedral of this status, that was a pretty radical and honestly, a deeply meaningful decision. But even with its humble design, the church quickly became the spiritual center of the British administration. It was completely woven into the fabric of colonial life in New Delhi. I mean, we're not just talking about the viceroy's local church. This was the main stage for the empire's biggest moments of prayer, from celebrating royal events to praying for comfort during times of war. This building was really the spiritual heartbeat of British power in India. But then, of course, history took a massive turn. In 1947, the empire came to an end, and India became an independent nation. So the big question is, how does a church so tied to the old rulers find its place in a brand new India? This timeline really maps out the church's journey right alongside India's. You can see its colonial beginnings, with the foundation stone laid in 1927. Then comes that pivotal moment, independence in 47. And that leads to a huge step in its reinvention, joining the Church of North India in 1970, which really marked a final break from its imperial past. So what exactly is the CNI? Well, it was a landmark movement that brought a bunch of different Protestant churches, including the Anglican Church, into one single, unified, independent Indian organization. For the cathedral, this was a massive deal. It formally shifted its entire identity. And this is where things really changed. The congregation, which was once almost all British administrators, started to reflect the real diversity of India. It became the cathedral for the Diocese of Delhi, and its whole mission shifted from serving a foreign power to serving its own community in a free country. And that brings us to today. Because the cathedral didn't just survive this transition, it actually thrived, carving out a new vital role for itself right in the heart of modern India. Today, its mission is all about inclusive service. It's actively working to build bridges between different faiths, it supports vital education and charity work in the community, and it's still a place of spiritual guidance, opening its doors to absolutely everyone, no matter their background. And you can't overlook its location. Being just steps away from Rashtrapati Bhavan, the president's official home, it remains this really powerful symbolic landmark in the nation's capital. It's now admired not just as a church, but as a living piece of India's complex heritage. So when you put it all together, the Cathedral Church of the Redemption really stands as this quiet, powerful symbol. It represents this continuous thread of faith that has woven its way right through the end of an empire and the birth of a nation, all while staying true to that founding principle of humility. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? The story of this cathedral, a building that chose modesty over might and silence over spectacle, it makes you ask a question that feels more relevant than ever. In a world that is so full of noise, what is